All right, podcast number 10. We are talking carbs as we're continuing our macronutrient full series.
Carbs.
Carbs are the devil.
Ticker carbs.
Hey, ticker carbs!
Our last cast was on protein. Today, we're talking about carbohydrates. So, carbs, essentially what they are, it's fiber, starch, and sugar kind of combined into one big fun molecule there. And your body breaks. The fiber helps you poop. Your body, your body can't digest the fiber, obviously, so it helps you poop. It helps keep the things moving along there. But the starch and sugars, your body's going to break down into glucose ultimately to use, as its main energy source. When people talk about complex and simple carbs, don't have as many starches. The things are already broken down a little bit more. You use it a little bit faster. The complex carbs are starchier. Obviously, they're more complex. They take longer to break down into the glucose ultimately for your body to use. So why carbs are important? It's your body's main energy source. Like I said, it gets broken down into glucose, which is used to make glycogen. And this is the most readily available energy source in your body for your muscles. It's important for your brain to function. It's something you shouldn't avoid. So how do we know how much to eat? Andrew, you want to cover this one?
Well, the macro intake recommendations, as indicated by the U.S. government, the World Health Organization, etc., are anywhere between 45 to 65% of your daily dietary intake. So a lot of carbs. So eat your goddamn carbs. Anyways, if you are eating a 2K calorie diet, which you probably should be, and don't eat your goddamn 1200 kcal diets. If you are eating that, stop that. Anyways, you should probably eat about 900 to 1300 of your calories in carbs. So yes, you can eat your sugar, you can eat your potatoes, you can eat your corn on the cob, and whatever the hell else you want, because you probably need it.
All right. We know that people avoid carbs a lot in diet. Why do you think that is?
Because they were told to by somebody who didn't know any fucking better.
That's one way to put it.
Because like with everything in the nutrition and fitness industry, there needs to be a big boogeyman, and everybody, you can go around the internet and read the stories of bodybuilders literally dipping their chicken in water because they think it's too oily, because they aren't getting enough fat, because fat used to be like the thing everyone avoided at one point, which is ridiculous on itself, and we'll talk about that another day. But nowadays it's carbs, because there's all these like intolerances and allergies and other things, and sugar, and oh my god, you gotta cut that. And it's because it's such a big portion of your diet. It's like the easiest thing to cut, because everyone's like, oh, you need to eat your protein, oh, now you need to eat your fats too, oh, keto, oh, whatever. So then like, well, shit, I guess all I got left is to cut my carbs. So then they just cut the shit out of those, and they're always very tired afterwards.
Carb cutting, you know what? Let's say it out loud. Carb cutting does work. Short term. Bodybuilders, they love to use carb cutting or carb cycling to reduce their weight for a show. You know, somebody who's normally 205 pounds, but they need to get under, say, 198. They'll sweat off and keto off that last couple of pounds. It does work short term. It does not generally work long term. It's dangerous to do so in most cases. You know, and on top of that, you get rid of your carbs, which are, as Chris said, your main energy source for your body. Your body will convert energy from fat and from protein to what it needs, except for in its brain. Your brain, the neurons in your brain require a steady supply of carb energy, and only carb energy, to power it. If you don't get your carbs, your neurons don't fire right, and you literally get slow and stupid, which does describe quite a few ketoers that I know.
I will say, I think people like the low-carb diets because you see immediate results.
Yeah.
But there's a reason behind that. Like I said, carbs are converting to glycogen eventually. That glycogen mass, I want to say it's 5% of your 5 to 10% of your muscle mass is glycogen.
Hmm.
So you use that up, and then you don't replenish it, you're going to drop 5, 10 pounds like that. And carbs also make you retain a little bit of water. In the long run of things, a little bit of water in your body's not. Well, I mean, you want water in your body, but water retention means nothing for your fat, your fat percentages in your body. It's not a big deal, but you don't take in as many carbs, that water weight drops quickly. So someone jumping to a keto diet on Atkins, all the other low carb diets, you lose 10, 15 pounds in this first week or two. You think you're doing awesome, but that's going to taper off, and you start to feel like shit after a while because you don't have the energy you need.
And that's true
And
for any diet.
bearing in mind as well that when, like you said, you're losing water weight, your muscles are shrinking up because of the lack of water and the glycogen bleed, but you're not, and your clothes may very well fit just the tiniest bit better because without all that water retention, you're a millimeter smaller than you were, but that's not changing the way that you look at all. So, not only is it not reducing the amount of body fat, you still look exactly the same, even though you're 10 pounds lighter than you were. So, where's the benefit? How does this help?
I think really a lot of the carb cutting, because we talked about it like that initial result, it's because we're so intrinsically tied to what the scale says rather than what is more important is like waist, wrist, neck, hip measurements, because that proportionality is in the long run more important than whatever you see on the scale. But whether you do a keto diet, just a low carb diet, or just calorie cutting, the first month, like you dump a ton of weight. But again, a lot of it is because even if you still eat carbs, but all of a sudden you're eating at a deficit, all this excess bloat, it just flushes out of you, right? Really, because nowhere for it to be stored. So then it's like, oh, this is awesome, it's great. The scale is just down, but it like with the scale itself, which we can probably talk a whole topic on its own, is it's really like a really short-term focus, and that's kind of like I think carbs are just the easy, sexy thing to the villain to make the villain right now, especially sugar. Ugh.
Do we want to open up that can of worms? Start talking about sugar?
Well, we do all the time, so why not?
All right. Who wants to rant first?
All right, so sugar. Sugar is, at the end of the day, it's a simple carbohydrate. And, as Chris mentioned earlier, there's complex carbohydrates, which are long chains of simple carbohydrates put together. And then there's simple carbohydrates, which are just shorter chains all in of themselves, which means that they break down faster. Your body converts them a whole lot quicker into what it needs and sends it off on its merry way. And with the diet that most of us have in the Western world being comprised mostly of shit, it means that you're ingesting a lot of extra calories and you're breaking them down a lot quicker. And you've got calories that are being burned very quickly and in a surplus, so they're being quickly stored as fat. And that's how that works. And it really comes down to just stop eating quite so much simple carbohydrate. It's not, oh, never have sugar again. Sugar is the devil. Sugar is evil. Sugar should be avoided at all costs. It's stop eating so goddamn much of it is really what it comes down to. And while I've got the floor as well, sugar is sugar. All right, honey is not better than sugar. It's not better for you than table sugar, for example. Agave nectar is not better for you than table sugar. Sugar is sugar. The body treats them all pretty much the same and stores them all ultimately exactly the same. So stop being so fucking afraid of eating fruit. There is nobody on earth who ever got fat just eating apples. It doesn't happen. Eat your bananas, get your potassium, get what sugar you're going to get out of them. Just stop eating Snickers bars and potato chips and shit like that on top of it and saying, oh yeah, fruit makes you fat, because it's just not the case.
Yeah. In defense of fruit, Like, we have all the added sugar into things, the candy and the whatnot. When you're eating fruit, you're getting fiber as well, and that's a big key to that. The fiber is going to offset a lot of that sugar that you're getting too. So, drinking fruit juice, no, you're just drinking straight sugar. Eating that apple as opposed to apple juice, you're getting the fiber to help slow things down, and in the long run, that's what's going to help you there.
Not to mention the satiety from it as well. I mean, you're
Oh,
getting
definitely.
stomach stretch from having put that apple in your stomach. You feel not hungry anymore, so you stop eating because that's how nature built us to determine how much we're supposed to eat.
So to come back around to the sugar thing, because I like this. I have this one article that not that we aren't talking about, but just to spread our wings a little bit. There's an article I like to use whenever one brings up the documentary Fed Up, and there's a little excerpt from it that I want to read because the big thing we always hear is that, well, sugar is linked to obesity. Well, um, there was kind of a meta study that was done a while ago, and there's citations in the article, of course, because it's all sciencey and stuff. But they talked about the link between sugar and obesity, and in going over some of the previous studies, they said basically that the evidence showing that sugar is a major factor in obesity is relatively weak, because any of the initial kind of that first layer of evidence that there is a link, that causation is extremely weak because when you look at it, there are other factors like just calorie consumption, which is really the big thing. Is that if you're needing to, that we always talk about, you got to just cut your calories if you want to lose weight. It's really that simple. So excess sugar is really excess calorie consumption, not that sugar itself is causing the obesity, and that there are other factors that the research doesn't interpret appropriately to actually even back up some kind of weird link between, sugar is bad, you eat the sugar, and then all of a sudden you just get fat, right? And then just cutting the sugar out somehow eliminates the need to just cut calories, which I think is something that really gets glossed over. Is like, oh, you just cut your sugars and you can eat whatever you want and you're okay. Well, it's really not how it works, and the evidence shows that yes, sugar is a contributing factor, but only because we eat too much of it. Just like we eat too many calories, right? If you eat way too many bags of Cheetos, you're gonna get fat. If you eat way too many cinnamon buns every day, you're gonna get fat. The commonality is it's too many goddamn calories. Put the fucking shit down and count calories and be responsible with your moderation.
All right, well, you reminded me there too, talking about studies. Another one that comes up when we're talking carbs a lot is the GI index, the glycemic index. Um, what I think people don't realize is when we're talking about that, those studies were done on fasted individuals who then only ate that carb. So, the GI index talks about the blood response or the blood sugar response, and the problem with that is if you eat a mixed meal, so say you have your pasta, but then you're adding a fatty sauce and a protein with it, your blood sugar response is completely different. So when people use the GI index as a system of eating, it's not really doing you any good. Well, I mean, you're not hurting yourself. I can say that because they're still pointing you to, quality sources of food, but it's not something you really need to worry about. Um, if you have your pasta, throw some chicken on top or beef or whatever you guys want to. I know you hate your chicken, but eating a mixed meal is much more important than eating eating one carb at a time. And that I think people get too caught up in the numbers with the science behind the GI scale.
I think in general people get too caught up in whether it's, I mean, not that there isn't value in either exercise or nutritional science, but a lot of those studies, when you look beyond the abstracts, you realize they're in very isolated situations. So the application of whatever their conclusions are, whether it's about the GI index or even some of the exercise efficacy studies, you got to realize that the methodology they're using is very isolated, usually small sample sizes, and the value of them has to be measured appropriately for the size and scope for what they're for what the average is in the industry. And it's just like with any academic study. You really have to look at things in context. And to go back to your point, like something like the GI index studies, like you said, the underlying, like, it's some interesting data, but it's not gospel because, like you said, it's fasted. They're literally only eating the one thing, and it's not being compared to what happens with like an actual plate of food that you might actually eat. So the science versus the actual realistic application, there's a pretty wide chasm there. So if you're going to read that stuff, be academically literate when you do so. You know, you don't have to have a degree, but you do have to realize where these studies are coming from and what the language and the study actually means for you if you're going to actually try and implement anything from them.
All right, I know we get kind of fired up
For the day.
when we talk about elimination diets. So, you know, there are times when it is appropriate to avoid carbohydrates. I can think of, you know, if you're diabetic, your doctor can usually give you some better guidelines on what to eat, how to spread out your carbs through the day. There are, all right, we kind of ran it on ketogenic diets as well. If you are going to follow one of those plans, because there are times when it can be useful, doctor guided ketogenic diets are the way to go. They can monitor your progress. They can, you know, I know they have litmus tests to make sure you're not excreting too many proteins and, you know, doing damage to your kidneys. So there are times when low carb diets are the way to go. But for the general public, there's no need to avoid a whole macronutrient like that. So if you want to eat macronutrients, Matt, I think this is your wheelhouse. I think you mentioned it earlier about quality sources of where to go. So like some good complex carbohydrates.
The best source I can think of for getting your carbohydrates is vegetables. You know, not always the starchy vegetables like potatoes, although those are friggin' great too, but you'd be amazed, you turn over a package of green beans or peas or radishes or anything like that and see just, you know, how many carbs there are, and that's a good clean source. How many calories are in, you know, I buy from Costco, I get this giant 4-pound pack of haricot vert green beans. Feeds me for a week, and I think in that entire package there might be 450 calories. That's a really damn good place to get carbohydrates. You're going to meet those carbohydrate goals without going anywhere near your calorie goal for the day. It's a good thing for satiety. It's great for fiber. You know, as we mentioned, fiber is that indigestible part of the food that just moves through you, grabbing a hold of all the bad stuff and taking it out the back end. Actually, while I'm on the subject, I'll break off just for a quick second too and point out that there's everybody thinks of fiber because of the name fiber. They think of it as fibrous bits that aren't digested. There's also a different kind of fiber that's more of a gelatinous substance. Once that's in your gut, it tends to grab a hold of discarded bits of bile from your GI tract that would otherwise get reabsorbed into your body, and that can cause heart disease. So when people say that fiber is good for your heart, that's what they're talking about. It's literally sucking up those things that would potentially cause heart disease. And since it makes bowel movements easier, that sort of thing, it has a great effect on preventing colon cancer and you know, things of that nature. So, you know, yay fiber, poop.
Everybody poop. At least make it enjoyable.
While we're on that topic, I think the daily recommended of fiber is roughly 35 grams a person. You can even bump that up to 50 or 60 and be all right.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bump that up in one go. You're gonna feel a little hurt. You know, adding a few grams a day is the way to go. But wild variations in it, you'll be feeling some pain.
Yeah, too much fiber too quickly, you're gonna be sleeping on the couch first off, because your wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, dog, whoever will not appreciate the balloon you're making out of the sheets, and then. On top of that, you're going to be backed up, like too much fiber all at once, and you just can't poop. And then the opposite is true too. If you ingest a lot of calories but very little fiber, say you're drinking a bunch of fruit juices instead of eating fruit, then it can at the same time back you up and give you the shits, which is a really weird feeling. So don't go doing either of those things.
Yeah, having the unsatisfactory poop is not fun. Where you're like, oh man, I just pooped, but I feel like I need to poop some more, and you feel like you're butt pregnant, and it's not fun. So don't.
Butt pregnant. All right, we got sidetracked. We were talking about food.
All right, so good sources of carbohydrates. We went over vegetables, and with regards to vegetables especially, what I like to teach to classes at work when I teach them is, with regards to natural colors, not added colors, but with regards to natural colors, try to eat a variety of colors on every plate. It's all well and good that you like butter beans. Try to eat butter beans and say squash or radishes or something else, something different colored, because different colors usually are a pretty good indicator of different micronutrients and things like that. So try to get a variety of things. Elsewise, you've got your whole grains. Whole grains are just less refined than some of the more refined flours that you're going to find. So white bread, not horrible for you, but not nearly as good for you as wheat bread, not nearly as good for you as whole grain wheat bread, and so forth, so forth, so forth. So the less refined your grains are, usually the better.
It doesn't mean you gotta cut out all white food. I mean, there ain't nothing wrong with white food. Just don't eat. Just try to find a little bit of variety to spice up your life, but don't go and like try and have an exorcism in the bakery department just because you see a whole rack of white bread and you're just like triggered by it. It's okay. Just move on if you really don't want some white bread.
And there's nothing wrong with white bread. Don't think it's poison. I've been accused of that. Don't think it's the devil. Just don't make it the cornerstone of your bread eating experience all the time, every time, is what it comes down to. Especially here in America.
All that white bread has all that hidden nasty sugar, though, Matt. Come on, you should know better.
Oh no! Oh no! Sugar! Shine the non-believer! Yeah, so what I cover, whole grains, vegetables, those are going to be your big ones, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's most of it. And, if you want to have a piece of candy or whatever through your day too, that's A-okay. Just don't go nuts on it. Or some chocolate. Don't we all? All right, well, I think that covers about everything we were going to go over. If you want to go into a little more detail, feel free to check out our blog. It's IMFitcast at WordPress.com. One of our admins, Gavin, has some really good posts in the dietary.ca section. Goes into a little more detail about what we were talking today, so check it out. We'll catch you guys next time.
And go read the rest as a palate cleanse, because it's a lot of stuff in Gavin's stuff, so read the rest of our stuff too, because it's a lot shorter and more
We're all good.
But other stuff's good too.
And palate cleanse, that's the only good cleanse. Remember that, boys and girls.